Hello friends, welcome to another episode of the Pocket Meta. Gunny T here with you today, obviously not Glazer. I will be bringing you some extra content from time to time here on the channel. I've been working with Aaron for a long time over on his Marvel Snap content, making some videos for him there, as well as running all of his Snap Judgments League tournaments. And speaking of tournaments, I am looking forward to bringing you Pokemon Pocket tournaments as soon as possible. As soon as I'm able, I'm going to be launching some Pokemon Pocket tournaments for us, especially because there's not a ranked mode right now. So we got to get ranked somewhere, that way we have a meta to play with. This channel will be specializing in bringing you meta decks. So the only way we're going to get that is by launching you some tournaments. So let me know below if tournaments are something that you're interested in, and if it's something that you'd be interested in participating in the future. You can expect to find that over on our Discord once the game actually launches itself. And to give us a little leg up on our competition, day one, we're going to go over some Pokemon terms that might help us, especially if you don't know as much about Pokemon. So we will be covering some terms for the battlefield, what the different zones are there, the different Pokemon types, what their strengths and their weaknesses are, as well as trainer cards and exactly what those are going to do for the game, as well as some other Pokemon terms that just might help us in general. And then lastly, I'll be talking about some meta terms that I found out while doing research for Pokemon in general. But first, I would like you to please like and subscribe to us. We're going to be bringing you content rapid fire once the game releases. And a like and a subscribe here is really going to help push our content and get it out to more people here in the future. But let's go ahead and start by talking about the battlefield. So the first spot we're going to talk about is the active spot. That's the zone where you see Pikachu in this picture. And most of our combat is going to come from the active spot. That's the Pokemon that's actually doing the battling. It may be able to affect bench Pokemon, but normally speaking, the two Pokemon in the active spot are going to be the ones fighting against each other. Next, we'll talk about the bench, which is the three Pokemon you see below Pikachu there, and that is what is up next, or possibly up next into the active spot. Your goal is to defeat your opponent's bench. That way you can end up winning the game. So it also is going to be a key location for you to keep an eye on to know what you might be battling in the future, because that's where those Pokemon are going to come from. The next spot is going to be the deck. That's where we're going to create and then put all of our cards. So we're going to be creating a 20-card deck for Pokemon Pocket as opposed to a 60-card deck, which is in the normal Pokemon TCG card game, as well as some of the other digital things that they had. This is a much simplified version of Pokemon, so there are going to be some things that are not exactly the same as normal Pokemon for Pokemon Pocket. All right, after that, there's the discard pile. This is where used cards go. This is where our Pokemon that have been knocked out are going to end up, as well as some of the cards that, other cards that we'll be using in the future that we'll talk about. But it's just a discard zone. There may be ways to interact with the discard zone, or you may have to discard cards from your hand, and that's the location that they would go to. The next spot is your prize cards. So in order to win, one of the win conditions for Pokemon Pocket is to get all of your prize cards. And how you're going to do that is you're going to take 3 cards from your deck and place them face down into the prize card zone. You're not going to know what they are. Whenever you defeat an enemy Pokemon, you get to draw one of your prize cards and add it to your hand as if it's basically just an extra draw, which is really awesome. And I imagine that there's going to be strategies and times where you're going to need to do that really to end up winning the game. And then there's normally only one prize card drawn except for EX, but we'll talk about that at the end here. Next is your hand. So in this picture over here, you see the 3 bench Pokemon. Right underneath the 3 bench Pokemon, there's 6 cards in this player's hand. That's where all of your other cards are going to go, or Pokemon that may go onto the bench in the future. All right, next we're going to talk about the different types of Pokemon. So the first one up is grass type Pokemon. They're Pokemon that harness the power of nature and plants. Their strengths are water, ground, and rock. Their weaknesses are fire, ice, bug, and flying. So what that means for strengths is they're going to end up doing 20 extra damage for any of their attacks in Pokemon Pocket. So in the Pokemon TCG, the rules are slightly different. It's just a flat line, extra 20 points of damage for anything they have a strength against. Now weaknesses for these Pokemon is going to be fire, ice, bug, flying, and poison. So weakness means they take extra 20 points of damage from those types of Pokemon. So remember that going in the future. Fire type is Pokemon that control flames and heat. Their strengths are grass, bug, ice, and steel, and their weaknesses are water, rock, and ground. Next is water. Water Pokemon thrive in aquatic environments. Their strengths are fire, ground, and rock. Their weaknesses are electric and grass type Pokemon. Electric are Pokemon that generate and manipulate electricity. Their strengths are water and flying, and their weakness is ground. Next, we have fighting type Pokemon. They are Pokemon with physical attacks known for their strengths and their martial arts skills. Their strengths are normal, rock, steel, ice, and dark Pokemon. Their weaknesses are flying, psychic, and fairy type Pokemon. Next, we have Psychic. Definition is a Pokemon that use mental and psychic abilities. Their strengths are fighting and poison. Their weaknesses are bug, ghost, and dark Pokemon. Dark Pokemon are stealthy and cunning Pokemon that use deceptive tactics. Their strengths are psychic and ground and ghost type, and then weaknesses are fighting, bug, and fairy type. Then we have Fairy. They're charming and magical Pokemon. Their strengths are dragon and dark. Their weaknesses are poison and steel. Then we have our rock type Pokemon. They're sturdy. They're normally associated with stone and earth. They also have very high life totals normally. Their strengths are flying, fire, bug, and ice. And their weaknesses are water, grass, fighting, ground, and steel type Pokemon. Then we have ground Pokemon. They're ones that thrive in and manipulate earth. There's electric. Their strengths are electric, fire, poison, and rock. Their weaknesses are ice, water, and grass. And then we have steel type Pokemon, metallic Pokemon known for their toughness. Strengths are fairy, ice, and rock. Their weaknesses are fire, fighting, and ground type Pokemon. And then we have dragon Pokemon, powerful legendary-like Pokemon with draconic traits. Their strengths are dragon, and their weaknesses are also dragon, which is kind of crazy. And then they also have a weakness to ice and fairy type. Lastly, we have our ice type Pokemon that can freeze an opponent and create ice. Their strengths are flying, ground, grass, and dragon. Weaknesses are fire, fighting, rock, and steel. And we have ghost type Pokemon, eerie Pokemon that can phase through reality. Their strengths are psychic and ghost. Their weaknesses are also ghost and dark. And then we have bug type Pokemon, small versatile creatures. Their strengths are psychic, grass, and dark. Weaknesses, fire, flying, rock, fairy, and poison type. And lastly, to wrap us all up here, we have normal type Pokemon that are very general. They have a wide range of abilities. Their strengths are none, but their weaknesses are only to fighting. So I think we're actually going to find a lot of normal type Pokemon making it into a lot of different decks. And one key here is, generally speaking, the types of Pokemon are going to need to use that type of energy in order to activate their abilities. One reason why I really think we're going to see normal type Pokemon is they just use any kind of energy to activate their skills. So I think that's going to be a key component here, is putting normal type Pokemon in your decks. Next, we're going to talk about trainer cards. That's what the other cards that are going to fill out your decks are. So there's 4 types of trainer cards in the normal TCG. That is the item cards, the supporter cards, stadium cards, and tool cards. I'm not exactly certain about tool cards if we're going to end up having those, but I know stadium cards will not be in Pokemon Pocket. So I'm going to concentrate on item cards and supporter cards. So the definition of an item card is a card that provides various effects and can be used in a turn. You can use as many of them as you want in any turn, such as healing a Pokemon, drawing cards, or searching your library for a specific card type. The example here I have is the Max Potion, which will allow you to heal all the damage from one of your Pokemon. If you do, you have to discard all energy from it. But that can be a very powerful effect, especially on a Pokemon with a high hit point total, just erasing all of the damage that was done to that Pokemon. So we're going to see trainer cards that are, these item cards are going to be very, very useful throughout the game, and it's going to be very strategic on when and how we use those. And then the other type here is the supporter cards. They're powerful cards that can usually have a significant effect, but can only be played once per turn. They often allow players to draw multiple cards or manipulate their hand in some kind of way. So I really see that those types of cards are going to change the game, and whenever you play them or your opponent plays them against you, it's really going to have a dramatic effect on how the game is played. All right, last terms I want to talk about here are EX cards. This is something new to me whenever I played Pokemon way back when. There were no EX cards, but this Charizard, for instance, is one of the EX cards that is in Pokemon Pocket. The definition of an EX card are they're powerful Pokemon with higher hit points and more potent attacks compared to the standard Pokemon. When an EX Pokemon is knocked out, the opponent takes 2 prize cards instead of 1, making them a strategic choice with both risks and rewards. So if you think about that, we talked about prize cards earlier. You normally get 1 of them for taking out your opponent's card, but with if you end up knocking out an EX Pokemon, that's 2/3 of the game there that you've already won. You only need to knock out 1 more Pokemon. So that's going to be very crucial in playing these EX Pokemon. I also imagine there's going to be a limit on EX Pokemon that you can play, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me for you to be able to play an EX Pokemon and then play another EX Pokemon. But we will find out when Pokemon Pocket releases. All right, last 2 terms I have here are specific to the meta. And I thought this was really cool to bring this information to you, especially if you're not familiar with the Pokemon meta in general. The first definition is an Uber. So an Uber is a tier that includes Pokemon that are considered too powerful for standard competitive play. They often have exceptionally high stats, abilities, and moves that can significantly impact battles. The result, they are banned on lower tiers to maintain balance. And I'm just going to be floored. Like if we end up with Ubers and people are just clamoring for bans, or people just saying like, this is an Uber, it has to be an Uber. An example of an Uber here is the card that I have shown here. If you actually play Pokemon, you may know that this is one of the best cards in Pokemon. And there are games where people will allow Ubers, so not banned everywhere. But generally speaking, Ubers are banned in like normal standard competitive play. So are we going to find Ubers? I don't know. I think there's going to be some very high-powered Pokemon that may be considered Ubers, and people are going to be looking to ban them as if it was done in the standard TCG. The next one is OU. So OU are overused Pokemon. This tier consists of Pokemon that are frequently used in competitive play, but are not as overwhelmingly strong as those in the Uber tier. OU Pokemon are balanced enough to be viable while allowing for a diverse and competitive environment. And I have no doubt in my mind that we will definitely have OU Pokemon floating around in the Pokemon Pocket meta. There are going to be Pokemon that are pretty much played everywhere. I imagine some of those normal types that I talked about before, we are going to find, just cards that are used in almost every deck. So if I take a Marvel Snap example, that's where I'm coming from right now. There was a card called Jeff the Baby Landshark. And for a long time, Jeff the Baby Landshark was in pretty much every deck because it just had an ability that allowed it to be so flexible and just always relevant. So I imagine the same thing will happen for Pokemon Pocket, is we'll end up finding cards that are just so versatile and so, able to be used that they're going to be played in many, many decks. All right, well, that kind of closes out our terms here. We're going to be moving into our questions of the day, and we had some great questions coming. First one is from Ella. They ask if I've ever played the Pokemon TCG before, and I have. It was in like the first grade. So I haven't played Pokemon itself in 25 years or something, and I haven't kept up with the meta at all. I come from a background of Magic the Gathering, played a lot of Magic the Gathering for a long time. I played Hearthstone. So I played card games quite a bit. I played Dragon Ball Z. I played all kinds of card games, but Pokemon wasn't something that I played. So I'm really looking forward to learning from the community and learning more about this game whenever it comes out. RS Barry wants to know what the first online game I remember playing. And I'm sure I played other ones, but the first online game I remember playing heavily was Diablo 2. And I played it with my family. My mom, my dad played, all of my brothers played. So we all got really big into Diablo 2, and we loved it for a long time. Now, as far as TCGs are concerned, it would have to be the original Magic the Gathering Online Moto. The one that looks like it was built for the 90s, but I played that game very heavily for a long time before moving into Hearthstone. Played Hearthstone for many years, like a long time. And then I played Magic Arena for a while. All those games were really good, and then I really fell in love with Marvel Snap. And with Pokemon Pocket being so adjacent to Marvel Snap, I'm really looking forward to this game. I'm so excited for it. I also have a 6-year-old daughter, so I'm just really excited to have this game that, my daughter, she loves Pokemon. We like watching the cartoons for it and the anime, so I'm really excited to introduce her to this and have her open packs with me. And whenever she gets a little bit older, maybe teaching her how to play the game as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this game in general. And then Models wants to know what my favorite nap location is. And I have to say, I have such a comfy chair downstairs. It is my favorite chair to just sit back, recline in, and take a little bit of a nap. For any of you older folks out there, especially parents, I call it low power mode, like whenever your computer just turns off the screen, but it's like still on. That's what I consider it whenever I just end up dozing off in that chair. Like if anybody calls my name, I'm like, yep, oh, I'm here. I'm not asleep. Don't worry about me. So that's my favorite nap chair downstairs. It's such a great chair. And that kind of wraps it up for us. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate being able to bring you this content. I look forward to just bringing you more and more. And as this game releases, we're all going to be learning together. And I can't wait to discover what the meta is, what all that stuff means, and how to play this game as effectively as possible. And especially, I'm so looking forward to bringing you tournaments. So again, if you want to see some tournaments, let me know. If you have any tournament experience, I'm all ears to hear about it, because I want to learn more about this game and make sure that it is top-notch, just like the Marvel Snap tournaments that I'm already running. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, Gunny T out.